So moving on, calling this meeting to open. Do we have confirmation of a quorum?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments? Never do. Okay. If anybody's listening and ever wants to comment, we'd love to have you. Okay, so moving on to the action items. The first is consideration and possible action on approval of the May 5th, 2025 board meeting minutes. I second that. All in favor, say aye. 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 Motion passes. The second item, the general manager's report.
On the general manager's reports, we have the report on David Line and something followed by the well rehab, and then kind of the totals and updates. So each one will. So first we have the operational, chemical, and optimization financial report. Mr. Line.
Mr. President, members of the board, my name is Jacob Galvan, and I'll be presenting the production distribution report for the month ended April 30th, 2025. On tab 2 of your board binder, we have the SRWA water distribution summary and true-up estimate. And I'll begin on column C. So on column C, we have the SRWA total distribution. The year-to-date is 1,441.526 million gallons for a daily average of 6.8 million gallons. On column F, we have the distribution for BPV. The year-to-date is 1,316.873 million gallons for a daily average of 6.2112 million gallons. On column G, we have the distribution for value mud number 2. The year-to-date is 33.108 million gallons for a daily average of 0.156 million gallons. On column H, we have the distribution for Los Fresnos. The year-to-date is 58.39 million gallons for a daily average of 0.275 million gallons. On column I, we have the credit for B&D. The year-to-date is 30.271 million gallons for a daily average of 0.143 million gallons. On column J, we have the allocation for Indian Lake. The year-to-date is 2.884 million gallons for a daily average of 0.014 million gallons. Below, we have the true-up estimate for BPV is under by 22.45 million gallons. VMUD number 2 is under by 3.07 million gallons. And the city of Los Fresnos is over by 25.52 million gallons. On the next page, we have the SRWA production distribution report for the month of April 2025. On the third column from the left, we have the total water produced. The total was 212.955 million gallons for a daily average of 7.099 million gallons. On the last column, on the far right, we have the total water distributed. The total was 212.879 million gallons for a daily average of 7.096 million gallons. Below, we have the chemical consumption cost was $82,933.23, and the electrical consumption cost was $80,683.02. On the next page, we have events that reduce water production, and there were no events for the month of April. On this page, on the next page, we have the iron, manganese, and arsenic analysis. On April 2nd, we had a 15% blend, right? A 5% increase from the previous month. You can see manganese increased a little bit, but still within standards. And the TDS was also increased a little bit, but it was still within standards. There were no other changes made on that as far as the chemicals or blend. On this page, we have the RO and well pump status for the date of the collection. And eventually, we have the wells and the ROs that were on. On the next page, we have the manganese graphene where the blend was 15% and you could see the manganese level at 0.012. Here we have the arsenic graph where the ferric was at 1.3, the chlorine dioxide remained at 0.03, and the arsenic was a non-detectant. On this graph, we have a graph comparing the water production and distribution for fiscal year 24 and 25. On the next graph, we have water plant production for the 3 water treatment plants, Brownsville water treatment plants, where you can see SRWA contributed with 30.89% of Brownsville's water demand.
Shouldn't that be 187? Small detail. It's not worth worrying about too much. On their other sheet, it said 187.
On the, talking about that 182, should be 187?
Yeah, not a big deal though. On page 33.
Alright. Yeah, I think it's 180.
It agrees to page 31. The actual
Page.
Okay, that's what, they picked up the distribution instead of the production side.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, small detail.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next. Rehabilitation necessary.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and members of the board. My name is Jorge Santillan, Finance Manager. I will go over the financial performance as of April 30th, 2025, beginning with operating revenues from member assessments. Looking at the last column, the amount is $4,550,403. From this amount, we back out the line number 11, number 10, total operating expenses of $3,025,681. This results in operating income of $1,524,722. We continue with the non-operating revenues. We add the line number 18, net non-operating revenues. Sorry. Which one? Yeah, this looks like the PDF. Apologize for that. Continuing with line number 18, we add the 93,867. This results in income before capital contributions of 1,618,589. There were no capital contributions. The change in net position, line 21, 1,618,589. We add this amount to the beginning of the year net position of 24,534,856. This results in a net position at the end of April of 26,153,445. The next 2 pages, this is the summary by account and account type. And looking at the last page, let me just go over briefly explain what each of those columns are. The first line, the first column is the FY 2025 approved budget. That's the total annual budget for the 12 months, which totals 5.9 million. The second column, that's the year-to-date budget. That's the 7 months of the budget, or 7/12 of the annual budget. This totals 3.4 million. Then we have the year-to-date actuals through the month of April, 2.2 million. Then we have the difference column. That's the difference between the year-to-date budget and the year-to-date actuals. And the amount is 1.2 million. The April budget, that's 1/12 of the annual budget, 1 month budget. That's 493,701. And then second to the last column, we have the April actual, 341,000. And then we have the budget balance, which is the difference between the first column, the 12-month budget, minus the year-to-date actuals, which is the third column. And this totals 3,699,152. Any questions?
For the cartridges and the membranes, is that just we don't need to replace them, or are you having trouble getting them?
No, we haven't had the need to replace them. as of
Okay.
yet.
Good, good. Any questions from you? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and members of the board. My name is Mike Esquivel. I'm here to give a quick update on the well rehabilitation project that is ongoing. It's been a long month. But we did show some pretty good numbers. First, start off with the definition of pumping terms. GPM is gallons per minute. Static level is water level when the pump is off. Pumping level, it's the level when the pump is on. Drawdown level is the pumping level minus static level, and specific capacity, that's the rate of well yield per unit of drawdown. So this is a picture of well number 16. Well number 16 was the first well that we did. This project started May 5th. On the left-hand side, we have the screen before the rehab, and on the right is after. So as you can see, the well screen did show signs of blockage, and on the right, after the rehab was done, most of the screen was cleaned off. So that this is just a screen. Behind the screen we have a gravel pack. The gravel pack is something that we're not able to view. So this rehab that we did with carbon dioxide, we're hoping that this would clean out some debris that were to block this gravel pack. This next slide is for well number 13. Well number 13 showed some blockage, and after, screen is always nice and pretty after any rehab. So going to the numbers, we first started with well 16. Static levels stayed the same at 46.2. Before the rehab, the pumping water level was 151.2 at a discharge of 455. The total drawdown was 105, and it showed that it had a specific capacity of 4.3. Now, after the rehab, what it showed was that the pumping water level increased, not by much. The drawdown went down to 101, and specific capacity changed to 4.43. So this first rehab that was done, the numbers that we grabbed before the rehab didn't represent the numbers that we were grabbing previously in the past. Why that happened, we're not sure. But the previous pumping water level was 167 feet, doing 355 gallons per minute. So After this rehab was done, we got together with our hydrogeologist, Mr. Kevin Spencer, Mr. Patrick. We all discussed it. We're not sure exactly what had happened with the first pump rate. But what we did see is compare it to the last, the old numbers, and we did get a significant increase. We got an increase of 55.5%. So the old specific capacity was a 2.9, and after the rehab, the specific capacity was a 4.43. So based off the old numbers, it did increase. I am monitoring this well. We're going to continue monitoring it on a weekly basis to see how this level is trending. So we decided to go ahead and go to the next well, which was well number 13. So when we did well number 13, I went ahead and did a pump test before to grab my own numbers before the contractor did theirs, and they were similar. Static level was a 51.5. The pumping level drew down to 186.1 feet at a discharge flow for 448 gallons per minute. The drawdown minus the static level was 134.6 feet, which showed a specific capacity of 3.33 gallons per minute per square foot. Afterwards, static level was 52.2. So the pumping level was then 149.1. So that showed a 20% increase of water that we have on top of the pump now. Same discharge rate, 449, but the drawdown totals 96.9 feet. So the well's not drawing down as much as it was before, so now there's more water on top of that pump. So our new specific capacity changed from 3.33, it increased to 4.63. It's about a 39% increase from the previous test.
And you said the first numbers were pretty close to, best case scenario, about 50% improvement over what we had before?
For well 16?
Yeah.
Yes, from before, it showed a 55.5% increase from our numbers. The numbers I grabbed March 20th, it did show a pretty good increase.
That's good news. I mean, we're doing about 7 megagallons per day, roughly, and even if we only hit, on average, the 40% number, we've pretty much gotten us almost to the nameplate. So, thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So currently, well 13, we got well 16 online already. It is pumping water into our system. Well 13, it's still offline. We're pending a back T on it. Hopefully by end of day today, I'll be grabbing that back T. After well 13, we did jump to well number 1, and well number 1 we'll be televising today. The pump has already been removed. The pump test was already done. The pump test showed similar results as to our previous pump test. So I believe tomorrow we'll be doing the carbon dioxide injection.
And is well number 1 one of the really clogged wells?
So well number 1, after well 13, we had a discussion with our hydrogeologist, and ideas were kind of thrown around, and we wanted to see what well number 1 would do with this rehab. Well number 1 was not a really clogged well. It was more of a 50% loss well. So we want to see how much we'll be able to gain from it using this method. So that's all I have for the update. Any other questions?
So we might see an increase on the water production for next month when the well 13 starts work.
So what this is for, it's not really for increase of production. It's just for keeping enough water coming into the well. If there is a lot of blockage on those screens or in that gravel pack, that water level will drop down further. meaning that there's not a lot of water on top of that pump. And we want to stay away from getting to very low levels, because then there's a possibility of getting air being sucked in. So we want to keep at least 50 feet of water on top of that pump at all times. What I'm hoping for with this rehab is just sustainability. If we keep these levels for the next 10 years using this type of method, then that's, we're always going to be getting water coming in. So that's what I'm hoping for. It's not really the increase of production that we get out of that well.
Oh, I thought this was, and maybe that was my misunderstanding, this was also gonna increase our production, our ability to pull water from the well, by keeping that 50%, or that
So
that water level 50 feet there.
it wasn't really increasing production. It was just making sure that we had enough water to extract from there. So we've always stayed at usually around the same pumping rate per well. So let's say, for instance, well number 13, we're pumping 150 gallons per minute out of that well. Well, it's going to usually stay consistent at 450. If the water level does drop lower, well, you might be pulling a little bit less, just because the pump's having to work a little bit more to push it out. But if you had a higher head, then the pump doesn't really work as hard. So where you might get a little bit more production, but it's not going to be anything drastic. So it's just sustaining itself. We want enough water coming in. Whatever water comes in and what we take out kind of stays steady.
Yeah, the issue has been that the pumps haven't lost the ability to pump the water as they initially were. The issue was that the water level when the pumps were on was dropping closer and closer to the pump itself. That if we continue to let it go, that water level is gonna reach the pump, and at that time the pump is just gonna shut because there's no water there. So our goal was to put some more water on top of the pump, increase that drawdown higher. And what we got like an additional 39, 40 feet on top of the pump. They say we had 50, now we had 50 feet, now we had like 90 feet on top of the pump. So that assure us that we're gonna have water there for the future. And in case we were to, let's say, had a great outcome out of this, then we could look into the possibility of, instead of having a 50 horsepower, maybe we can put 100 horsepower. And the well can sustain 100 horsepower, which is going to be pumping like 600, 800 gallons per minute, a lot more. But that's something we can look for in the future. Yeah.
This is really for optimizing them
Yes.
with the size pumps that we have, right, in the
Right.
wells.
So that would be then the next step. If we keep this water level.
You could change a couple of the wells to larger pumps.
Larger pumps, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Simon Flores, I'm the Water Resources Administrator, and I'll be giving you the drought update. So the last time we gave the drought update, just a couple days later, Mexico actually released some water, or transferred some water in Amistad, and that resulted in our water levels going up to 22.5%. And since that time, we've already lost 0.5%, so it's unfortunate, but it did go up, so it's a good thing. As you can see, the previous water levels, May 17th was 22.3. May 3rd was 22.5, and May 10th was 22.4, May 17th, 22.3. So that little help from Mexico that extra water from Mexico did help us, but we're using so much water that it's immediately going down again. National Weather Service June to August 2025 outlook for the Lower Rio Grande Valley, Deep South Texas region. A hotter than normal average outlook is favored during the June to August 2025 timeframe. Meanwhile, precipitation remains a toss-up across the region. Occasional rains in April and May have helped to keep drought conditions in check, especially for the lower valley. Showers and thunderstorms with origins from the tropics could produce heavy rainfall and localized flooding. Falcon International Reservoir remained near historic lows at the end of May. Confidence is near certain, almost approximately 100%, on total storage remaining at or near record lows through August. Only a tropical cyclone's remnants can help the reservoirs at this time. It's a bit too soon to speculate on summer tropical activity this far out, but an event like 2024's Alberto would provide beneficial rain in June. There are some indicators of late summer activity favoring the eastern and central Gulf. Again, water conservation is key until further notice. Stage 2 or 3 restrictions continue to early spring 2025 and are likely to continue until further notice based on inflows from Amistad and Falcon. Any questions? Thank you.
And I believe that wraps up everything now. Just the last item is discussion on the date and time of the next board meeting, which looks like it's July 7th.
That is correct. I just want to note that there is an error on the calendar here. The PB board meeting has been moved also to the same date for July the 7th. I'm not sure on staff how they missed that, but the PB board had voted to move that.
Yes. With that in mind, I will entertain motions to call votes. I move to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.